Hey everyone, it's Natalie Bencavanga, and welcome to Facts Over Fear. There's been a lot of political debate this fall about whether voters should keep or remove state Supreme Court Justices Christine Donohue, Kevin Dougherty, and David Wecht. But one question that's not getting talked about much, if voters decide to let them go on November 4th, what actually happens next? So, here to discuss this and where the future of the Democratic Party goes from here is Ken Martin, chair of the Democratic National Committee. Ken, thank you so much for chatting with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Natalie. It's great to be back in Pittsburgh. My very first stop after I was elected chair of the DNC was right here in Pittsburgh. So I've been here a lot. It's a great community.
Oh, well, we're so happy to welcome you back. Thanks for being here. So let's talk a little bit about what is going on in Pennsylvania, because as much as I'm sure you'd like to sightsee, you're here for a real reason. So why is this such a big deal with everything happening on November 4th with these judges, and what does it mean to retain our judges?
Well, look, we've seen a disturbing trend around the country in recent years from far-right groups that are trying to buy Supreme Court seats, right? And the reason they're trying to do that, of course, is they're trying to do an end around state legislatures, and they're trying to do an end around the people by having these Supreme Courts basically become policymakers, move into a space where they're actually pushing, policy onto the people that they're supposed to be protecting. And so what this means for Pennsylvanians, of course, is if these three Supreme Court seats are flipped by the billionaires who are trying to buy them, it means that the rights that you have to make decisions over your own health care and your own body are in jeopardy. Voting rights are in jeopardy. Certainly, we'll see more gerrymandering where people of color and other marginalized communities would be disenfranchised in Pennsylvania. You can go through the list. Most importantly, a lot of the things that impact your life on an everyday basis will now be controlled by a activist far-right Supreme Court that's been bought and sold by the billionaires who are trying to buy it. Jeff Yass is the richest Pennsylvanian, and he's spending millions of dollars of his own money on these races. People have to ask, why would you spend that much money of your own money? And I think the answer is very clear for most folks. And so I think the reality is we've got to make sure we do everything we can to protect our democracy, and part of that is making sure we keep these Supreme Court justices there.
And let's talk a little bit about these Supreme Court justices specifically, because, like, to your point, there is a reason that so much money is being funneled into the state to push for this no on retention. What have some of these judges done for us? Because it seems to me they've been very active in stopping the illegal recount of the vote in Pennsylvania in 2020, and they were supportive of reproductive justice as well. So, what can you tell us a little bit about the impact that these judges have made?
Well, what you've seen with the justices that are on the ballot right now is they've done their job. They're judges,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
They have to be impartial, right? They have to be fair. They have to make sure that they're not legislating from the bench, that what they're doing is ruling on the law, and that the rule of law still matters in this country. And they've
Mhm.
done that in a fair way, a independent way, making sure that people's rights are protected in this state at the same time, as you mentioned, and they deserve to be reelected. Again, you have three amazing Supreme Court justices who have done their job independently and fairly in a way that has, made people's lives better and easier here in this state. And so if they are not retained, of course, you're rolling the dice on so many rights that most Pennsylvanians expect, not just, of course, the right to make your own healthcare decisions, but you can go down the list of things that the far right in this country are attacking, from education to, again, to marriage equality to
Mhm.
you name it. This is what's in jeopardy right now.
So let's talk a little bit more about this before I move on to the next topic here. When we're talking about gerrymandering that you brought up, I've talked to a lot of people who feel very disillusioned by the system and they're feeling as though their vote doesn't matter. Can you underline and underscore the impact that our votes have on November 4th in these sort of, let's call them smaller elections, right, as opposed to the national one? And what can people do outside of voting so that they stay politically engaged?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important for people to, in this moment right now, recognize what's happening around this country.
Hmm.
So many norms of civil society that have connected all of us to each other, right? Whether you're Democrats or Republicans, have completely been eroded, right?
Hmm.
We're at a point in our history where the polarization is higher than it's ever been, and the divides in this country are so deep. And we have a divider in chief as the president right now,
Hmm.
who's instead of bringing us together, continues to divide us. I think what we need to do as Americans is we need a renewal, right, of who we are as Americans. And we need to be reminded of the fact that we are all our neighbors and our brother's keepers, so to speak, right? That, we are only as good as, standing up and making sure that every person in the community has an opportunity and a chance to get ahead in life and that they don't fall through the cracks. And that's who we are as Americans. And yet, right now, we see that under assault. So, what I would say is this, you know, whatever your political persuasion, we need people to engage right now, to roll up their sleeves and reach out to their neighbors. People are suffering in this country right now. Most people are falling behind, feeling like they don't have an opportunity to build a better life for their family. They're feeling unseen and forgotten. And we need to give people a sense again that their better days are ahead of them. And so there's lots of ways they can do that. But in particular, right now, Natalie, and this is really important, in the next few days, SNAP benefits, food nutrition benefits, are going to be taken away from millions of Americans, on top of the 22 million starving families that were kicked off of SNAP this summer. In just a few days, because of this government shutdown, every American who's receiving nutrition benefits from their government is going to lose those benefits. And so, what can we do right now? Well, if you have food, in your house, bring it to a local food pantry, right? Or make sure that your neighbor who might be struggling can get a fresh cooked meal from you, right? This is what I'm talking about. The policies that are being pushed right now are devastating communities, and we need to remember that many people are suffering. It's not about party right now, it's about people.
And let's talk a little bit about that from a broader perspective, these ideas of people first policies, because I think that has gotten a little lost in the shuffle here. So I want to talk about two key voices that are really emerging in the Democratic Party right now. Abigail Spanberger from Virginia and Zoran Mamdani from New York. So there seems to be a little bit of a split within the party between more of the progressive wing and maybe the more moderate side. And I want to acknowledge first the common ground, because there is definitely the same basic idea of putting people first that is emerging from their platforms and sort of the groups that are, rallying behind them. So for me, the question really has become, is this an either or situation of what the message is moving forward, which sort of side of this coin is going to take center stage? Or is the real challenge that you're finding as the chair of the DNC figuring out how to bring the party together around clearly shared values, but looking at it from two different messaging standpoints?
Yeah, look, I mean, what is the one thing that Zoran Mamdani and Abigail Spanberger
Hmm.
and Mikey Sherrill in New
Hmm.
Jersey have
Hmm.
in common? They're all focused on affordability. They're all
Yes.
focused on making it easier for people to live their lives. There's an understanding, as I mentioned earlier, that many Americans right now are feeling like they can't get ahead in life. They can
Hmm.
barely afford their rent. They can barely afford to put groceries on the table. The cost of childcare is out of control, right?
Hmm.
And people are struggling and anxious. And so all of them share that vision of how do we actually bring down the cost and make it easier for you to afford your lives, right? Now they have different ideas on how to do that that are reflective of each of their respective states, or in Zoran's case, the city, right?
Hmm.
So I've always said no one should confuse within the Democratic Party unanimity with unity, right?
Hmm.
We don't agree on everything, but we are unified in terms of our goals and our outcomes and what we're trying to do to improve people's lives. And so, look, we are a Big Ten party. We
Hmm.
have conservative Democrats, we have centrists, we have progressive Democrats, and we have leftists. I have always said it and believe that you win through addition, not subtraction. You win by bringing people into your coalition, not by pushing people out. And yes, that makes for a messy debate. Yes, that means we don't agree on everything as a Democratic Party, right?
Hmm.
Yes, it means there's different ideas on how to get to the same goal. But the reality is we share the same goals and we have different ideas on how to get there. That's what makes us us uniquely different, and I would argue uniquely better than the Republican Party. That if there's anyone who disagrees, they're drummed out of their party, right? They
Mhm.
march lockstep around one agenda, and they don't welcome dissent or debate. So I say this truly. I love being a Democrat, despite how messy it can be. That is the beauty of the Democratic Party.
So, as we wrap up, Ken, and thank you so much for taking some time to chat with me today, why do you think these races in particular are getting so much attention, and what do they really tell us about where the future of the party is heading?
Which races, Natalie?
Excuse me, the Virginia race, the New York race, and let's bring back in the races here in Pennsylvania for the judges.
I mean, look, all of these races are important right now in 2025.
Hmm.
Right. Of course, it signals for a lot of people some momentum going into 2026. But bigger than that is they're important because of what it means to folks in Pennsylvania, as I mentioned. It's
Hmm.
important to what it means to folks in Virginia and New Jersey, who the next governor is, right? They're going to have tremendous impacts on pushing policies that are actually going to, make or break the lives of people who live in those states. So, look, we never put the cart before the horse. While, of course, these have a huge impact on the 26 elections, the reality is they have a huge impact on the lives of people in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Virginia, and there's over 100,000 local elections that are on the ballot throughout the country right now. And so, look, we're going to continue to keep our focus on that over the next 6 days left. Make sure we turn out every single vote, and make sure at the end of the day that people understand the stakes of these elections.
Ken Martin, thank you so much for joining me for Facts Over Fear. Really appreciate you being here. And until next time, everybody, please take care of yourselves and each other.